The Arboretum is one of Elizabeth Lee's favourite places in the ACT, and she often comes here with her daughter Mia. These trips have been less frequent in recent weeks as she fights an election campaign that even loyal Canberra Liberals concede is difficult. To end Labor's time in office, Elizabeth Lee needs her party, all friendly crossbenchers, to pick up 4 extra seats across the ACT's 5 electorates. It is a big ask, but she insists that at this election, the Liberals have their best chance in many years. Elizabeth Lee, thanks so much for speaking with us.
Great to be with you.
First of all, a very easy question. Why is the Arboretum one of your favourite places in Canberra?
3 reasons, and first is that it's one of Mia's favourite places, so whenever I say to her, hey, where would you want to go for the afternoon? I've actually got an hour. She always chooses the Arboretum. The second is that it's somewhere that I come to so that I can get a big picture. And the third is that I think it's an example of a project that did have its detractors in the beginning, and it kind of reminds me of the courage that's required to make bold and ambitious decisions.
That's fascinating. So on some of the detractors were in the Liberal Party. They were critical of the construction of this place. A few of them said it was a luxury item, a vanity project of the then Chief Minister. Were your predecessors wrong? Did they lack a long-term vision for this city?
No, I mean, it's hard for me to judge, obviously, because I wasn't in the discussion at the time, and circumstances do change.
Did you bring us here to say, I'm a different leader of a different Liberal Party? Zed Sezelja might have said that, Brendan Smith might have done that, but I'm my own person. This is very different.
Oh, look, I mean, I've always said that I'm my own person, and I think that it's important for the community to get to know me as Elizabeth Lee, the leader of the Canberra Liberals in 2024.
I wasn't necessarily going to go in this order, but another project, another long-term project for this city that Labor and the Greens say is a decade city-making scheme is the expansion of light rail across the lake and down to Woden. You came out opposing this 2 years ago. Why did you do that?
First, because there is no business case, no final route, no costings, and no completion date. And even today, we saw that they have confirmed, despite the fact that they said they're going to start construction in 28, that won't happen, that the construction contract won't be signed until after the next election.
There are disputes about the various costs and whether it'll pay for itself. At a bigger political level, though, I am sort of curious on this because the Canberra Liberals have gone to voters a couple of times now saying that you're going to wind back light rail, and as a result, at least as a contributing factor, have been rejected by Canberrans. Is this a losing proposition for your party?
Well, I don't accept that there is one single issue that people vote on and that determines the election result.
So you think you can still win by saying, no, light rail goes to where Floriade is, Commonwealth Park, and no further?
Absolutely, and that's why we came out very early with our position. As an opposition, I don't think there's many parties that have been very transparent and upfront with the Canberra community halfway through a term about a major infrastructure project of this kind.
You've announced 2 policies in this campaign that do seem to have really sparked a lot of community debate, both positive and negative. The first is the idea of a city stadium on the lake. If you win, when will the Canberra Raiders, or maybe the ACT Brumbies, play their first match there?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question, and what we have said that when we looked at the time frame in terms of the preparation that's required, that we will want to start the construction work at the end of the first term, and so if you attack on probably about 2 or 3 years before that.
So 2030s for the next game?
Look, I think that it'll be important to. Yeah, look, that's probably something that, let's do that and say, look, well, let's hope that we can get them out there then.
Right, okay. There's been a big fight over the cost of this. You say $700 or $800 million, the government says $3 billion. Just to the broader question on that, do you believe that a stadium, which is going to be expensive either way, is actually one of the most pressing things that Canberra voters want?
It may not be the most pressing thing that Canberra voters want, but it is certainly a major infrastructure project that Canberrans have been promised for over 15 years. We also know that this is the kind of project that will open up a lot of opportunities. We've always said that we would prioritise infrastructure projects that would bring the most economic, social and cultural benefit to our city.
During this campaign, you've also put forward a starkly different vision for the design of the ACT. The Greens want to densify Canberra. You want to expand it with a proposal to build a new town centre out in the east at Cowan. When would you expect the first people to move into Cohen if you get your own way?
Yeah, look, it's obviously not going to be in the first term. This is a long-term vision, and we want it to be bold and ambitious with our housing.
How long-term?
So, we want to
a decade,
we
5
want
years?
to make sure that that we were having a plan to 2050. So our plan is obviously to have 125,000 new homes by 2050.
New town centres are expensive due to construction costs. I mean, there's roads, power lines, sewage. Do you have any idea how much a new town centre would cost the ACT budget?
Obviously, those issues are taken into consideration and offset against the land sales, and of course the fact that we are going to have a population of 700,000 by 2050. At the moment, Canberrans are going through a housing crisis, and we know because of the number of ballots that we've seen, where you've got over 10,000 applicants for a mere 100 blocks, that there is certainly demand for single dwelling land blocks, and that has been sorely missing under this Labor Greens government.
Presumably the price tag though is going to be in the billions, and you're saying it'll be offset by land sales, which is effectively, and land tax and things like that, which is effectively the same argument that Labor and the Greens are making about the extension of light rail. Is there not an economic argument that infill would be a more affordable short-term option?
There's no doubt that we need both, and that's why we have announced a plan that obviously looks at the long-term vision of Cohen as a new district and town centre, but we also want to be making sure that we fast-track the developments in current areas.
There's only ever been one majority ACT government, and it was a Labor one. The Liberals have only ever governed with independents, and not for a long time, as we've discussed. Do you concede that you're going to need independents to be successful to become Chief Minister?
Obviously, our primary goal is to get as many seats as possible and hopefully get a majority, but I do accept that the reality and history tells us that in the ACT that is very, very difficult, but I've always said that I will work with anybody in the best interests of Canberrans.
What about the Greens? Would you work with them? I mean, they don't want to work with you.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because with the Greens, their policy positions and our policy positions on so many core issues are so far apart that you would think it'll be unrealistic.
Okay, so we can rule that out. There has been some substantial internal turmoil in your party. Do you personally feel frustrated or let down that some of these internal controversies have distracted a bit, particularly from the past week of your campaign?
I think that it's important to note that when I've been out and about, and throughout all of these issues making the media, I've been out every day talking to Canberrans, and the issues that they're concerned about really are around cost of living, around housing.
You've put so much effort into rebranding the Liberal Party though. To have some of these distractions must personally be extremely annoying.
Oh, look, it comes as part and parcel of being a leader, and one of the great things about the Liberal Party is that we are a broad church, in the words of John Howard, and that means that we will have robust debate. Sometimes, obviously those discussions may spill out.
Well, let's just briefly go through it. I mean, you ousted your deputy, Jeremy Hanson, at the end of last year. There was a lot of internal factional manoeuvring within the party, and then on the eve of the campaign, Elizabeth Kickett was disendorsed after a very bizarre dispute in your actual party headquarters, which has involved all sorts of claim and counterclaim that I'm not that actually interested in. But for voters, if this is what happens...
They're also not that interested.
Well, but if this is what's happening in the lead up to an election, are things going to stay on the rails after an election? I think that's going to be a key question for quite a lot of people.
I think that the Canberra community can probably see that I'm the kind of leader who is not afraid to make tough decisions when it's necessary.
Labor are vying for 27 years in government. Why do you think Canberrans have voted for left of centre parties for the past 23 years?
Oh, look, if I knew the answer to that, maybe I wouldn't be sitting here.
Well, let me rephrase it. I mean, why have the Canberra Liberals been so ineffective at winning over Canberrans for so long now? What is it about your party?
Look, I don't know that you can actually just squarely say that it's just our party and it's our problem. The result is what it is, but it's also important to note, and as you mentioned earlier, James, that the ACT has only elected one majority parliament, and that was in over 20 years ago in 2004. And so I think it was probably a politically astute move for Labor to form a partnership with the Greens, and so we're fighting two parties.
You have to pick up 4 seats or hope that a friendly independent at least gets you to 4 in total. Can you do that? I mean, that's 1 in every seat, basically. You can have 1 stay with the status quo.
I think that, when you have a look at some of the election results around the country, is that anything is possible in politics. And, I have no doubts that we are doing everything we can to ensure that we give ourselves the best chance to pick up those 4 seats.
Elizabeth Lee, there's more I'd like to ask you about, but we are sadly well and truly out of time. We'll see you at the Leaders' Debate next week.
Absolutely looking forward to it. Thanks, James.